You just said something out loud and there was no one in the room. Not a question, a full sentence, directed at no one. That is not a habit. That is a child who was left alone with their experience long enough that their own voice became the only witness available. And what that cost you is something you have never fully named. Picture a child lying in bed at night, replaying the dinner conversation out loud into the dark, trying to find the version where it went differently, where the adult actually heard them. Nobody taught that child to do this. They figured it out alone because sitting with an experience nobody confirmed was real felt like disappearing. When a child grows up without an adult who could say, yes, that happened, yes, you are allowed to feel that, they learn to witness themselves. The voice becomes the substitute for the person who was not there, and it follows them into every empty room they will ever stand in. The first sign is that you narrate what you are doing as you do it. Okay, so I'm going to put this here, and then I need to, no, wait. You are alone, talking through a task like someone is watching, not performing, processing. Vygotsky's research showed that children use this narration to scaffold inner organization before the brain can do it silently. For most children, a parent's voice eventually becomes that organizing presence inside. You do it out loud because no one else was available to hold the sequence with you. Maybe the adults were absent. Maybe asking for help produced something worse. You became your own co-pilot, and the co-pilot never got to retire. This is what happens when a child had to build the scaffolding of adult support from their own voice because none was provided. If that is familiar, leave a 1 in the comments. But here's where it gets harder. The second sign is that you replay conversations out loud after they are over. And then I should have said, no, actually what I meant was, hours later. Sometimes days. You are in the shower rerunning something that ended Tuesday, prosecuting a case to an empty room. Your mind cannot file it away until it has been processed to completion. You are not obsessing. You are completing a loop the original conversation left open. The loops keep opening because you grew up where conversations ended without resolution, where your meaning was dismissed, and the mind learned that the only safe place to finish the thought was alone. This is what happens when a child's attempts to be understood were consistently incomplete. And what comes next is the sign nobody wants to admit. Now stop for a second. The narrating, the replaying, the voice filling an empty room. None of it is dysfunction. Every form of it was an act of self-sufficiency by a person who needed a witness and had to become one for themselves. The voice kept you coherent. The question the next part opens is what it cost you to need it this much. The third sign is that you talk yourself through emotions like you are coaching a child. Okay, it's fine. You are fine. Just breathe. Your own voice quiet in the car after something happened. Talking to yourself in exactly the tone you always needed someone to use with you and never reliably got. Here is what most people miss. You are not coping. You are parenting in real time after a hard thing. If caregivers were absent or unreliable, the child never inherits a calm voice. They manufacture one from nothing every single time. You are your own parent in every difficult moment, doing the job live. This is not fragility. This is what happens when a child had to raise the part of themselves that needed raising alone. If that one landed, leave a 2 in the comments. The last sign is the one most people never say out loud. The fourth sign, and the deepest, is that you have never fully believed anyone else would listen. It's easier to just work it out myself. You say that like it is a preference. It is a wound wearing the costume of independence. Somewhere early you learned that bringing your inner world to another person produced dismissal, ridicule, or simply nothing. The blank face. The subject change. So you stopped bringing it. You developed the voice instead. Reliable, always available, never cruel. The voice became the relationship. The cost is specific. Fluent in self-witness, almost illiterate in being witnessed by others. Bowlby called this the deactivation of the attachment system. When connection consistently disappoints, the system learns to reach inward. You became this because you were left alone long enough that your own voice became the most intimate relationship you had. That is not weird. That is survival with a voice. Three things actually shift this. First, the voice is not the problem. Learn what it is doing in each moment: organizing, completing, regulating. Name the function. That naming moves the process from automatic to chosen. Second, some people will actually listen. Let one sentence of the real thing land with one person who has earned it, and resist the reflex towards self-sufficiency. Notice what happens in the silence after. Third, stop treating the voice as a symptom. It is not evidence that something is wrong with you. It is evidence that something was wrong around you. The voice is not the wound. The voice is what survived the wound. You came by this honestly. A child left alone with their experience long enough builds the most reliable companion available: their own voice. That was not a failure. That was intelligence under constraint. The cost has been real. The conversations that could have been shared, the closeness you could not let fully in, the lifetime of being your own first and last resort. What would change? Not tomorrow, not after some long process. If you finally stopped treating your own voice as the only one you could trust with what is actually happening inside you. Send this to the person in your life who always seems to be working things out in the open, because they have probably spent their whole life being called weird for the one thing that kept them sane.